Michael Carter was on top of the world. Founder and CEO of one of the largest technology companies on the planet, Carter Tech, he had a life that many could only dream of. Mansions, luxury cars, exclusive trips, and parties with the global elite were part of his routine. However, behind this glamorous facade, Michael felt a growing unease. Detached from the day-to-day operations of his own company, he began to wonder if he really knew the challenges and difficulties faced by his employees. It was on an autumn morning, during a strategic meeting, that the idea began to take shape in his mind. Sitting at the head of a long conference table, he watched as executives discussed numbers, projections, and goals. Everyone seemed concerned only with the graphs and results, but no one mentioned the faces and lives behind those numbers. This bothered Michael more than he would like to admit. After the meeting, Michael decided he needed to do something drastic to reconnect with the essence of his company. He knew that to truly understand the problems, he would have to infiltrate his own business. And thus, the idea was born to adopt a simple identity as Mike, a junior programmer. He would go unnoticed, working at the most basic level alongside the employees who built the success of Carter Tech. The decision was not easy. Michael spent days planning how to do this without being discovered. First, he needed to completely change his appearance. The meticulously styled hair and well-groomed beard were replaced by a scruffy haircut and stubble. Swapping his expensive suits for worn jeans and t-shirts was a challenge, but a necessary one. Even his posture and way of speaking had to be adjusted to avoid anyone suspecting his true identity. With the help of a small trusted group in the Human Resources Department, Michael created a new identity for himself. Mike Carter, a young, newly hired programmer, with no relevant experience and a modest resume. The HR team was instructed to treat Mike like any other new employee, with no special privileges. On his first day as Mike, Michael felt a flutter of nerves he hadn't experienced in years. He walked through the front door of the enormous Carter Tech building, passing unnoticed by the security guards and receptionists. He picked up the badge with his new name and photo, feeling strangely anxious and excited. Mike Carter's journey was just beginning. As he was directed to his new workstation, Michael was met by an indifferent yet cordial team. The atmosphere was frenetic, with phones ringing, keyboards typing furiously, and technical conversations that he couldn't always follow. The feeling of being outside his comfort zone was both disconcerting and invigorating. He spent the first few hours setting up his computer, following internal tutorials, and trying to familiarize himself with the company's systems. No one seemed to pay much attention to the new programmer, which was exactly what he wanted. Michael was determined to blend in, observe, and learn. As the day progressed, Michael began to notice the small things he had never noticed as CEO. The fatigue in the eyes of the programmers, the constant pressure of deadlines, the frustration with systems that didn't work as they should. These were the daily realities he needed to understand deeply. By the end of the first day, exhausted, Michael returned to his modest rented apartment, far from the luxurious mansions he was used to. He knew he had a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, he felt he was on the right path. Michael Carter's decision to become Mike was just the beginning of a journey that would change not only his life but the lives of everyone around him. The next morning, Mike Carter arrived early at Carter Tech, determined to fully immerse himself in the role of a junior programmer. The sky was overcast, reflecting some of the anxiety he felt. With his badge hanging around his neck, he headed to the main office, observing the rows of workstations, blinking monitors, and employees rushing to meet their tasks. His first impression was of an ant colony in constant motion. The incessant sound of fingers typing frantically on keyboards and muffled voices in technical conversations mixed together, creating a chaotic yet energizing environment. Upon entering the development department, he was greeted by Jason, a senior programmer tasked with introducing the new employee to the team. "Hey, Mike. Welcome to Carter Tech," Jason said with a friendly but hurried smile. "Let me show you around." Michael, as Mike, followed Jason through a maze of cubicles and partitions. The walls were adorned with motivational posters and performance graphs he had never seen before. Those details, previously invisible from his position as CEO, now stood out, painting a vivid picture of the daily pressures faced by the employees. "This is your workstation," Jason said, pointing to a desk with a computer still in its box. You can set up your equipment, and if you need help, just let me know." While assembling his computer, Michael struggled to remember what his first days as a programmer had been like decades ago. Technology had advanced rapidly since then, but he was determined to learn quickly and not raise any suspicions. As soon as he finished setting up his workspace, Mike encountered his first challenge, a list of bugs in the company's main system that he needed to find solutions for. The instructions were vague, and the pressure to deliver results quickly was palpable. Taking a deep breath, he began to investigate the code, feeling the familiar yet strange sensation of being out of his comfort zone. Shortly after noon, Mike heard a soft voice behind him. "Hi, you must be the new programmer. I'm Sarah, the supervisor of the development department." Michael turned around and found himself facing Sarah, a woman with light brown hair and expressive eyes, who exuded an aura of confidence and kindness. It was the same Sarah he had heard about in several meetings, known for her technical competence and leadership skills. "Hi, Sarah. Yes, I'm Mike. It's a pleasure to meet you," he replied, trying to sound casual. Sarah offered him a warm smile before glancing at the monitor, where Mike was still dealing with the list of bugs. "It looks like you got a tough task right on your first day. If you need help, just let me know. We're all here to collaborate and learn together." The way she emphasized collaborate and learn together left a lasting impression on Mike. Here was someone who understood the importance of teamwork, something he had always preached but rarely saw in action so clearly. After meeting with Sarah, Mike felt a renewed sense of energy. He returned to work, deciding to accept her offer of help. Throughout the rest of the day, he strove to absorb as much information as possible, participating in team meetings and brainstorming sessions. One of the challenges he faced was understanding the new project management system that had been recently implemented. As CEO, he had signed the documents approving the new tool, but he had never worked directly with it. It was a chance to see how his decisions impacted the daily lives of the employees. By the end of the afternoon, after hours immersed in code and technical discussions, Mike took a moment to observe the environment around him. He saw colleagues interacting, some laughing together, while others were clearly stressed with tight deadlines. There was an underlying camaraderie, but also a constant tension that he had never truly understood. As he left the office that day, Mike felt exhausted but invigorated. The experience as an ordinary employee offered him a valuable perspective he could never have as CEO. Every little frustration and achievement of the programmers became tangible to him, and this new insight was beginning to shape his understanding of what needed to be improved within the company. On his way back to his modest apartment, Mike reflected on the lessons of the day. He knew there was still much to learn and many challenges ahead, but he was more convinced than ever that this was the right decision. He had become Mike not only to better understand his company, but to become a better leader, someone who truly understood the obstacles faced by every employee, from the junior programmer to the senior executive. This immersion into the daily life at Carter Tech was the beginning of a transformative journey, both for him and for his company, and he was determined to see where it would take him. In the days that followed, Mike dove deeper into the work of a junior programmer, slowly gaining confidence and becoming familiar with the daily routines of the development team. He was surprised by the complexity of the work and the numerous tasks that needed to be completed in a short amount of time. Technical challenges were a constant presence, but he felt increasingly comfortable in the role of Mike, the newbie. During the first weeks, Mike noticed how Sarah managed the team with impressive competence. She had an innate ability to handle crises, and her capacity to find creative solutions to difficult problems was admirable. It was no surprise that she was so respected by her colleagues. On a rainy afternoon, while Mike was immersed in his work, Sarah approached his desk with a friendly expression. "Mike, do you have a minute?" she asked, with a warm smile. "Sure, Sarah. What do you need?" he replied, curious. "I'm organizing a team meeting to discuss some issues we've been facing with the new management software. I would like you to participate and share your ideas. You have a fresh perspective, and I think it could be valuable for all of us." Mike was surprised by the invitation. He hadn't expected his opinion to be valued so highly in such a short time. Sarah seemed to see beyond appearances, recognizing the potential in each member of her team, regardless of experience or position. "Of course, I'm in," he said, trying to hide his excitement. The meeting was scheduled for the end of the afternoon. Mike felt a growing nervousness as the time approached. He prepared by reviewing all the data and information about the software, determined to contribute meaningfully. When the meeting began, Sarah opened with a brief presentation about the current challenges. The room was full, with programmers and developers actively participating in the discussion. Mike listened attentively, absorbing the different perspectives and trying to find a way to add something useful. "So, Mike, what do you think?" Sarah asked, turning to him with an encouraging look. Michael hesitated for a moment, but then he jumped in. "I think we can simplify some processes by automating redundant tasks. I've noticed there's a lot of repetition that could be eliminated, freeing up time for other more critical tasks." The room fell silent for a moment as everyone processed his suggestion. Sarah nodded positively, a spark of interest in her eyes. "That's an excellent idea, Mike. Perhaps we can create an internal committee to explore this possibility. Would anyone else like to join Mike on this project?" To Mike's surprise, several colleagues raised their hands, interested in collaborating. The meeting continued, and he felt increasingly part of that team, contributing ideas and listening to others' concerns. After the meeting, Sarah approached him again. "Thank you for your contribution, Mike. I really appreciate your insight. I think with your ideas, we can significantly improve our efficiency," she said with a genuine smile. "I'm glad to help, Sarah. You have an amazing team here," Mike replied, feeling a growing connection with her. As the days passed, Mike and Sarah began to interact more frequently. They had lunch together a few times, discussing not only work issues but also personal interests. Mike discovered that Sarah had a passion for classic literature and loved visiting old libraries in her free time. She spoke about her favorite authors with such enthusiasm that Michael found himself wanting to know more about her beyond work. One night, as they were leaving the office, Sarah suggested grabbing coffee at a small cafe nearby. The place was cozy and quiet, perfect for a more relaxed conversation. "So, Mike, what brought you to the world of technology?" Sarah asked, stirring her coffee with a spoon. Michael paused for a moment, pondering how to respond without revealing too much. "Well, I've always been fascinated by technology and how it can change lives. I think I've always wanted to be part of something that positively impacts the world." Sarah nodded, seeming to approve of his answer. "That's inspiring. Not everyone has the opportunity to work on what they love while making a difference." The conversation flowed for hours, naturally and engagingly. Michael felt increasingly comfortable with Sarah, admiring her intelligence, empathy, and passion for what she did. He knew he was starting to fall for her, but he was also aware of the complications that could arise from that. In the following days, Sarah's presence became a constant in his life. They became close friends, and Michael realized he increasingly longed for her company. However, he knew he needed to be careful. Sarah had no idea who he really was, and that truth could complicate everything. The experience of living as Mike was not just a lesson about the challenges faced by employees, but was also becoming a personal journey of self-discovery and human connection. Michael knew that his friendship with Sarah was something special, and he was determined to protect it, even if that meant continuing to hide his true identity. This duality, between being Michael Carter, the tech mogul, and Mike, the junior programmer, was becoming more complex with each passing day. He was discovering that love and friendship were not just matters of status or power, but of authenticity and genuine connection. Michael was at a crossroads, and the choices he would make in the coming days could define not only his future but also that of Sarah and his own company. In the corporate world, daily challenges present themselves incessantly. For Mike Carter, now living the life of a junior programmer, each day at Carter Tech was a new mountain to climb. He encountered a series of difficulties that, as CEO, he would never have predicted. However, these challenges only served to confirm the importance of his decision to experience life at his own entry level. The routine began to establish itself. Mike woke up early every morning in his modest rented apartment, made a simple coffee, and walked to the company. The contrast between his luxurious life as Michael and his new reality was significant, but he felt excited about the learning opportunities. The environment in the development department at Carter Tech was both vibrant and tense. Expectations were high, and deadlines were relentless. Mike soon realized that most programmers worked long hours, often sacrificing weekends to meet tight deadlines. This was a facet of the company's culture he had never fully perceived from his office on the upper floor. The pressure to deliver results quickly was constant, and it created a palpable level of stress among the team. During a weekly meeting, Mike noticed the tired expressions on his colleagues' faces. They were exhausted but remained dedicated, working tirelessly to ensure that products were delivered on time and without flaws. Mike began to see how his own decisions as CEO had impacted the lives of these employees. The fast-paced environment and pressure for results were largely a consequence of his aggressive growth strategies. This made him reflect on the responsibility he had as a leader and the need to find a better balance between productivity and employee well-being. One of the most significant challenges Mike faced was unexpected technical problems. One afternoon, the company's main system crashed, leading to a frantic rush to solve the issue before it had a significant impact on customers. The team was mobilized immediately, and Mike found himself working side by side with experienced programmers, trying to identify the root of the problem. "We need to find the bug in the code and fix it before the end of the day," Sarah said, with a tone of urgency. She efficiently coordinated the team, directing tasks and keeping everyone focused. Mike dove into the code, analyzing it line by line in search of errors. Meanwhile, he couldn't help but admire how Sarah handled the pressure. She was calm and determined, a true leader in times of crisis. After hours of intense work, the team finally located the problem and implemented a solution. The system returned to normal, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. However, Mike knew that this was just one of many technical challenges that would arise, and the pressure to avoid mistakes was immense. Another unexpected challenge was dealing with the social dynamics within the team. Like Mike, he was a newcomer trying to fit into an established group. Some colleagues were friendly and welcoming, while others seemed suspicious and competitive. He quickly realized that to thrive in this environment, he would need to carefully navigate interpersonal relationships. One day, during lunch, one of his teammates, Lucas, approached Mike. "Hey, newbie, I heard you have some ideas to optimize the system. Is that true?" Lucas asked, with a challenging tone. Mike knew he needed to be diplomatic. "Yes, I've been thinking of a few improvements, but I'd like to hear what you all think before anything. I'm sure your experience can add a lot to my ideas." Mike's response seemed to disarm Lucas, who nodded, visibly more relaxed. "Well, I'm curious to know what you have in mind. Can we set up a time to discuss this?" These everyday interactions, while challenging, were helping Mike understand the culture of Cartertech from a perspective he had never experienced before. He began to appreciate the importance of collaboration and mutual respect in a work environment, something he had previously taken for granted. As the weeks passed, Mike felt the growing weight of his responsibilities. As a junior programmer, he had less control over final decisions, but he was still responsible for delivering his work on time and ensuring it was of high quality. He began to understand his colleagues' frustration when important decisions were made without their involvement or knowledge. One afternoon, while at his desk, Sarah approached him with a serious expression. "Mike, I need you to handle a sensitive issue. We're working on a confidential project, and we need to ensure that everything is absolutely secure. Can I count on you for this?" Mike nodded, feeling the importance of the task. "Of course, Sarah. I'll do my best to ensure everything is perfect." Working on a confidential project was a testament to the trust Sarah placed in him, but it also increased the pressure to avoid mistakes. Mike dedicated long hours to the project, reviewing every detail to ensure everything was secure and protected. Each challenge Mike faced reinforced his reflections on leadership and responsibility. He began to see his past decisions in a new light, realizing how small changes could have significant impacts on his employees' lives. He also began to appreciate his team's contributions even more. Each member played a crucial role in the company's success, and their dedication and efforts often went unnoticed. Mike committed to implementing changes that would value and recognize each person's work when he returned to the CEO role. As the days turned into weeks, Mike Carter, the tech industry mogul, was becoming a more aware and empathetic leader. He now understood that true leadership did not come from power or authority, but from the ability to inspire and support those who worked alongside him. The experience of being Mike was transforming his worldview and challenging him to be a better leader. He knew that soon he would have to make tough decisions, but he was more prepared than ever to face whatever came his way, always guided by empathy and the desire to improve the lives of those around him. Mike's journey was just beginning, but he already felt he was on the right path to becoming not only a better CEO but a better person. As the weeks went by, Mike Carter felt his relationship with Sarah grow and evolve in unexpected ways. What started as a simple professional interaction soon transformed into a genuine friendship, marked by deep conversations and a mutual understanding that transcended the barriers of work. Sarah, with her inclusive and collaborative nature, often invited Mike to participate in important projects. She recognized Mike's potential and intelligence, and together they formed an efficient and synergistic duo. Before long, Mike became a key player in several critical projects, contributing innovative ideas and creative solutions. One of the projects they worked on together was the development of a new feature for CarterTech software aimed at improving user experience. Sarah led the project, and Mike, with his innovative vision, helped overcome various technical challenges. During long work sessions, they spent hours discussing strategies, testing new code, and fine-tuning details to ensure the final product was flawless. In those sessions, the connection between them became increasingly evident. "Mike, you have a unique way of seeing things," Sarah said during one of those late-night meetings, while they sipped coffee to stay awake. "Your perspective really makes a difference in our team. I just try to bring a bit of creativity to the work," Mike replied modestly, feeling a warm glow from the compliment. "And you're an amazing leader, Sarah. It's easy to be inspired working with you." This exchange of compliments and mutual support became a constant in their interactions, strengthening the bond that was forming between them. The conversations between Mike and Sarah also began to cross the boundaries of the workplace. They often found themselves discussing their personal lives, dreams, and aspirations. Sarah shared stories from her childhood, her travels, and her passions outside of work, while Mike spoke about his own experiences carefully, always avoiding revealing too much about his true identity. On a Saturday afternoon, after an exhausting week, Sarah invited Mike for a walk in the park. They strolled side by side among the trees, enjoying the fresh air and a break from their office responsibilities. "I always come here when I need to clear my mind," Sarah said, looking at the lake reflecting the sunlight. "It's a place where I can think and relax." "I can see why you like it here," Mike replied, appreciating the serenity of the location. "Sometimes life can be so hectic that we forget to just breathe." As they walked, Mike realized how much he admired Sarah, not just for her competence at work, but also for her worldview and her ability to appreciate the simple things in life. The friendship and admiration Mike felt for Sarah began to transform into something deeper. He found himself thinking about her outside of work, longing for her company and cherishing every moment they spent together. However, alongside these feelings came a growing concern. Michael Carter knew he was falling in love with Sarah, but the situation was complicated. He was living a lie, hiding his true identity from her and everyone around him. With each passing day, the weight of this duplicity grew, and he found himself trapped in a moral dilemma. On one hand, he wanted to be honest with Sarah and share everything about who he really was. On the other, he feared that this revelation would destroy the trust and relationship they had built. The thought of losing Sarah was painful, but he knew the truth would eventually need to be told. One morning, while Mike was focused on fixing a tricky bug, Sarah appeared at his desk with an excited look. "Mike, I'm having a dinner at my house this weekend, and I'd love for you to come. It will be something simple, just a few close friends and my family. Are you in?" The invitation caught Mike by surprise. Attending a family event was a big step, and he felt a mix of happiness and apprehension. "I'd love to, Sarah. It will be a pleasure to meet your family and friends," he replied, trying to disguise his anxiety. "Great. It's going to be fun. My family is a bit crazy, but I think you'll like them," Sarah said, smiling contagiously. As Sarah walked away, Mike sat at his desk, thinking about the implications of that invitation. Meeting Sarah's family meant entering even deeper into her personal life, and the prospect of confronting his own duplicity made him nervous. In the following days, Mike couldn't stop thinking about the dinner. He knew he needed to make a decision about how to handle the situation. The friendship and growing feelings for Sarah couldn't be ignored, but he also couldn't continue living a lie. As the day of the dinner approached, Mike reflected on his journey as a junior programmer. The experience had been enlightening, showing him the challenges and realities faced by his colleagues, but also connecting him to people he would have never met otherwise. He was faced with a crucial choice. He could continue hiding his true identity, risking his relationship with Sarah, or he could be honest and face the consequences of his actions. It was a decision that could change everything, not just for him, but for Sarah and for Carter Tech. With a heavy heart, Mike decided that he needed to be true to himself and to Sarah. He knew that in order to build any kind of future with her, the truth had to come to light. Now, all that was left was to find the right moment to share his true identity and face whatever came next. The growth of his relationship with Sarah was not just a matter of romance, but a journey of self-discovery and courage, and Mike was determined to find a way to do the right thing. The anticipation for dinner at Sarah's house was high. Mike Carter, contrary to his usual confidence as CEO, felt a knot in his stomach. He had spent weeks immersing himself in the life of a junior programmer, dealing with daily challenges and forging genuine connections. However, nothing seemed as daunting as the prospect of meeting Sarah's family. Tonight, in a way, represented a turning point. Sitting in his modest apartment, Mike looked in the mirror, adjusting the collar of the casual shirt he had chosen for the occasion. He felt uncomfortable with the idea of maintaining his facade. It was as if he was dividing his life into two distinct parts, and this dinner could very well be the moment when they collided. On the way to Sarah's house, Mike watched the city pass by through the taxi window. The bright lights of New York lit up the night, a reflection of the vibrant life unfolding outside. However, his mind was preoccupied with thoughts about what might happen that evening. When he arrived at Sarah's house, a charming and cozy brownstone in Brooklyn, he was greeted by the sound of laughter and soft music. The door opened, revealing Sarah with a radiant smile on her face. She looked different, more relaxed, in her own element. "Mike, I'm so glad you came," she said, pulling him into a warm hug. "Come in. I'll introduce you to everyone." As he entered, Mike was flooded with a sense of warmth and welcome. The smell of home-cooked food filled the air, and the atmosphere was bustling with people chatting happily. He was introduced to a group of Sarah's friends and a few co-workers he recognized from Carter Tech. However, it was when he met her family that Mike felt the true impact of the night. Sarah's mother, Elizabeth, was a kind and smiling woman who welcomed him with a tight hug. Her father, Thomas, was a man of few words, but his firm handshake conveyed a sense of respect and acceptance. They chatted about trivial matters, with Mike being careful not to reveal anything that could suggest his true identity. However, he was always attentive, observing how Sarah interacted with her parents and friends. He noticed how much she was loved and respected, which only heightened his admiration for her. As the evening progressed, dinner was served. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with funny stories and moments of relaxation. Mike felt increasingly at ease, as if he were truly beginning to become part of that intimate circle. However, an underlying tension persisted in his mind. He knew that at any moment he could be confronted with something that would reveal his identity, and the fear of that was almost paralyzing. After dinner, while everyone settled into the living room with their drinks, Sarah called Mike to a quieter corner of the house. They found themselves on the porch, under the soft light of the stars and the distant hum of city traffic. "So, what did you think of the craziness that is my family?" Sarah joked, leaning against the porch railing with a playful smile. "They're wonderful. You're so lucky to have such an amazing family," Mike replied, trying to hide the unease in his voice. Sarah looked at him with a soft expression, as if she could see through his defenses. "You seem a bit pensive, Mike. Is everything okay? It's strange to say this, but I feel like there's something more you want to tell me." Mike swallowed hard. There it was, the opportunity, the perfect moment to open his heart and tell the truth. But the words wouldn't come out. He feared that revealing his true identity could destroy what they had built together. Sarah watched him in silence, her gaze penetrating and empathetic. She didn't press, but her presence was an invitation for honesty. Finally, Mike spoke, his voice trembling but resolute. "Sarah, there's something about me you need to know. Something I should have told you earlier, but I couldn't find the right moment." Mike's heart raced as he prepared to reveal the truth. He knew that once he crossed that line, there would be no turning back. And even though there was a risk of losing Sarah, he couldn't continue living a lie. Before he could continue, the sound of footsteps interrupted the growing tension. It was James, Sarah's brother, approaching with a curious expression. "Sorry to interrupt, guys, but I think you're going to want to see this," he said, gesturing for them to follow him back inside. The momentary relief was evident, but Mike knew that the conversation was far from over. As they returned to the living room, everyone's attention was focused on a heated discussion about technology and cybersecurity, a topic that quickly piqued Mike and James's interest. During the conversation, something unexpected happened. James mentioned, unknowingly, that he had a background as a hacker and that in the past, he had tried to expose certain vulnerabilities in a major tech company's security. Mike felt his stomach drop upon hearing those words. James was the same hacker who had caused trouble for Carter Tech years ago, mysteriously disappearing after a direct confrontation with upper management. The revelation made Mike realize that dinner was not just about meeting Sarah's family, but also about confronting a past he thought was buried. James was a piece of the puzzle he hadn't expected to find that night. Dinner at Sarah's house turned into a complex scenario loaded with implications. Mike was now faced with an even greater dilemma. He needed to decide whether to reveal his identity and face the consequences of his past actions or continue hiding the truth, risking everything he had built with Sarah and the new perspective he had gained by living as Mike. The pieces of the game were in motion, and every choice he made from that point on would shape the fate of everyone involved. With a heavy heart but determined, Mike knew that the truth was inevitable and that the confrontation with his past was just beginning. The meeting with James, Sarah's brother, plunged Mike Carter into a spiral of memories and revelations he was unprepared to face. Until that moment, his double life had been limited to trying to understand the challenges faced by his employees and his growing affection for Sarah. Now, suddenly, he was dealing with the consequences of past decisions that were coming back to haunt him. When James casually mentioned his experience as a hacker, Mike felt as if the ground had opened up beneath his feet. He recognized the name and the story behind James's words. Years earlier, as Michael Carter, he had dealt with a significant security breach at his company. Someone had managed to infiltrate Carter Tech's systems, threatening to expose confidential data and trade secrets. The situation had been handled with maximum discretion, but the feeling of vulnerability had left a mark on Mike, and he had never forgotten the name of the person responsible, James. At first, James didn't seem to recognize him, which was a temporary relief. During dinner, Mike found himself watching James with a mix of curiosity and caution. James was charismatic and full of energy, someone who easily captivated the attention of others. He had a way of speaking that made everything seem possible, a trait Mike imagined was crucial in his activities as a hacker. But behind his charm, there was a determination and a sharp intelligence that Mike could not underestimate. As the night wore on, Mike and James engaged in a conversation about technology, encryption, and the ethical limits of hacking. The discussion started light, but soon evolved into a heated exchange of ideas and principles. Mike was aware that he needed to tread carefully, without revealing his identity or direct connection to Carter Tech. However, he was also curious to learn more about James's motivations, especially regarding the attack that had nearly compromised his company. James, for his part, seemed to enjoy the debate. There was a sparkle in his eyes as he spoke about his ventures into the digital world, explaining how he viewed hacking as a way to expose injustices and vulnerabilities that corporations often ignored. For him, it was a matter of social responsibility and digital activism. Many companies are more concerned about protecting their profits than protecting their users, James said passionately. Exposing these weaknesses is a way to force them to do better. Mike listened intently, intrigued and somewhat disturbed by James's conviction. He knew there was a truth in Sarah's brother's arguments, but he was also aware that the balance between security and ethics was delicate and complex. Amid the conversation, Mike found himself in an internal dilemma. Should he confront James about the attack on Carter Tech? Could he reveal his true identity and seek an explanation, or even a reconciliation? The idea that James could not only be an adversary but also a potential ally began to form in his mind. Perhaps there was a way to turn that unexpected meeting into an opportunity to correct the past and protect the future. However, The prospect of revealing his identity to James, and, by extension, to Sarah, left him hesitant. He feared that the truth could destroy everything he had built so far, both at the company and in his relationship with Sarah. Trust was a precious commodity, and once broken, it could be impossible to regain. As these concerns swirled in his mind, Sarah joined them in the living room. She sensed the intensity of the discussion and, smiling, placed her hand on Mike's shoulder as if to lighten the atmosphere. "I hope you two aren't planning to invade my digital privacy," she joked, trying to ease the tension. James laughed, raising his hands in a gesture of innocence. "Of course not, Sarah. I was just discussing theories with your friend here. He has some interesting ideas." Mike smiled, although his heart was heavy with indecision. He knew the moment of truth was approaching. He could not continue to lie to Sarah or James, not without sacrificing his integrity and the values he was beginning to reclaim through his experience as Mike. When the night finally came to an end and the guests began to disperse, Mike said goodbye to Sarah's parents and friends, thanking them for the warm welcome. James gave him a firm handshake, his eyes evaluating Mike with renewed interest. Perhaps he sensed there was more to that story than what had been said that night. Sarah walked Mike to the door, a look of tenderness and curiosity on her face. "Thank you for coming, Mike. It was great to have you here. My family really liked you," she said, her eyes shining under the soft light of the porch. Mike felt a pang in his heart upon hearing those words. He desperately wanted to be worthy of that trust, but the shadow of the truth loomed over him. With a genuine smile but a troubled mind, he replied, "I really enjoyed being here too, Sarah. Your family is amazing. Let's do this again sometime." As he walked home that night, Mike reflected on the dilemma he found himself in. The meeting with James had brought to the forefront issues of loyalty, justice, and redemption. He needed to decide whether he would confront James about the past and, more importantly, whether he would reveal his true identity. The choice he made could change the course of their lives and the future of Carter Tech forever. He knew time was running out, and soon he would have to make a decision that would define the fate of everyone around him. In the silence of his apartment, Mike Carter reflected on the complexities of his situation. The meeting with James had been a turning point, a collision between the past and the present that he could no longer ignore. The fact that James was the hacker who once threatened his company was not a coincidence he could set aside. The implications of this weighed heavily on his shoulders, demanding a clear decision on how to proceed. Mike knew that keeping his identity a secret any longer was not a viable option. With each passing day, he felt more guilty for not being honest with Sarah and James. But revealing the truth meant exposing not only his identity but also his past mistakes and the decisions he had made as CEO, which at times had put profit over people. Carter Tech had grown rapidly under his leadership, but that expansion often came at the cost of ethics and the well-being of its employees. It was a reality that Mike was beginning to understand deeply now that he was experiencing life as a junior programmer. He saw how decisions made in corner offices directly affected the lives of people on the factory floor, a level of awareness he had not possessed before. That night, lying in bed, Mike tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The truth haunted him like a shadow that refused to fade away. He thought of Sarah and how much she trusted him. Sarah, who was not only an exceptional leader, but also a person full of integrity and passion for her work. She deserved to know the truth. Determined not to postpone the inevitable any longer, Mike planned to confront James. He needed to understand the motivation behind the attack on Carter Tech and, if possible, try to build a bridge between their divergent worlds. If there was a way to fix the past and create a better future, Mike was determined to find it. The next day, upon arriving at work, Mike found James in the building's cafeteria, a usually quiet place where many employees went for a quick break. Mike took a deep breath, gathering courage before approaching. "James, can I talk to you for a moment?" Mike asked, trying to keep his tone casual despite the gravity of the conversation he intended to have. James looked at him, surprised, but nodded. "Sure, Mike. What's going on?" The two sat at a table away from prying ears. Mike hesitated for a moment, but knew he needed to be direct. "James, there's something you need to know about me," Mike started, looking into the eyes of Sarah's brother. "My real name is Michael Carter. I am the CEO of Carter Tech." James blinked, clearly taken aback by the revelation. At first, his expression was one of disbelief, but it quickly turned into a mix of anger and confusion. "You're saying that you are Michael Carter, the owner of the company?" James asked, his voice rising a notch, attracting the attention of a few nearby people. Mike nodded, feeling the weight of his confession. "Yes, and I need you to understand that it wasn't easy for me to keep this a secret, but I had my reasons." James crossed his arms, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "And what would those reasons be? Are you telling me you infiltrated your own company? For what?" Mike took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. "I needed to understand how my company functioned beyond spreadsheets and board meetings. I wanted to see what the employees were really facing to fix the things that were wrong." James listened in silence, but Mike could see that he was processing his words carefully. Finally, James spoke, his voice calmer but still filled with skepticism. "And what do you hope to achieve by telling me this now? Why tell me? And why right now?" Mike knew it was time to be completely honest. "Because you have something to do with this, James. You were the hacker who breached Carter Tech years ago, weren't you? You tried to expose something you thought was wrong." James stared at Mike, his expression now a mix of challenge and defensiveness. "Yes, I did. But you have to understand that it wasn't personal. I saw something that needed to be revealed. The company you were running wasn't as ethical as it seemed." Mike nodded, acknowledging the truth in James's words. He couldn't deny that under his leadership, Carter Tech had made mistakes. "I know that now, James, and that's why I'm here. I want to correct those mistakes, and I want your help to do it." James leaned back, clearly surprised by the proposal. Mike could see that he was considering his options, weighing the sincerity of his offer. After a moment of silence, James finally spoke, his voice softer and more contemplative. "If you're really committed to changing, to doing things differently, then I can help. But it's going to be a tough road, and you're going to need to be prepared to face the consequences." Mike nodded, feeling a mix of relief and determination. He knew he was putting himself in a vulnerable position, but he was also taking a vital step toward redemption and change. The two men talked for hours, outlining plans on how they could collaborate to improve Carter Tech, making it not only more efficient but also more ethical and fair for all employees. It was an ambitious plan, but both were committed to making it work. By the end of that conversation, Mike felt more hopeful than he had in a long time. He had faced the truth, and while the road ahead was uncertain, he knew he had taken the crucial first step. Next to James, he was determined to transform Carter Tech into an example of integrity and innovation, a company that truly cared about the people who made it exist. Now, with an unexpected ally, Mike felt he could face the future with renewed confidence. He knew that alongside Sarah and James, he could finally achieve the changes he so desired, correcting the mistakes of the past and building a legacy that everyone could be proud of. The meeting with James had been a crucial point in Mike Carter's journey. By confronting his past and revealing his true identity, Mike felt relieved but was aware that the real challenge was still to come. He needed to find a way to reconcile his life as CEO of Carter Tech with his experience as Mike, the junior programmer. More importantly, he needed to figure out how he could be honest with Sarah without destroying the relationship they had built. In the days that followed, Mike and James spent hours discussing plans to reshape Carter Tech. James, with his deep knowledge of cybersecurity, provided valuable insights into the vulnerabilities he had exploited in the past. Together, they began to develop a strategy to make the company more transparent, ethical, and focused on employee well-being. However, while working with James, Mike couldn't help but think about Sarah. She was the missing piece to complete the puzzle of his life. He knew he had to tell her the truth, but the thought of potentially losing her trust and affection paralyzed him with fear. One afternoon, after a long meeting with James, Mike decided it was time to face Sarah. He was aware that the longer he waited, the harder it would be to explain why he had kept his identity a secret. With renewed determination, he picked up his phone and sent a message to Sarah, asking to meet her after work. Sarah replied quickly, suggesting they meet at a cafe near the office. It was a place they used to frequent to discuss ideas and unwind after a long day. Mike knew it would be the ideal setting for the conversation he needed to have. Upon arriving at the cafe, Mike found Sarah already sitting at a table in the back, with a cup of tea in front of her. She waved to him with a smile, but Mike could see the concern in her eyes. He sat down, trying to hide the nervousness that consumed him. "Sarah, thank you for meeting with me. There's something important I need to tell you, and I think I've put it off for too long." Sarah leaned forward, her face taking on an expression of concern and curiosity. "Of course, Mike. What's going on? You seem tense." Mike took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "The truth is, I'm not who you think I am. My real name is Michael Carter. I'm the CEO of Carter Tech." Sarah's reaction was immediate. Her eyes widened, and her expression shifted from surprise to disbelief. "Michael Carter? Are you kidding me?" she asked, the disbelief evident in her voice. Mike shook his head, his heart racing. "I know it sounds crazy, and I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. I wanted to better understand the challenges everyone in the company faced, so I decided to work undercover as a junior programmer." Sarah fell silent, processing the revelation. Mike waited, knowing he couldn't rush her response. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke. "I don't know what to say, Mike. Or should I call you Michael? Why did you do this? And why didn't you tell me sooner?" Mike saw the pain and disappointment in Sarah's eyes, and it hit him like a blow. He knew he had broken her trust, but he hoped he could explain his intentions. "Sarah, I didn't do this to deceive anyone, especially you. I needed to see how the decisions I made impacted the lives of the employees. And during that time, I grew close to you in a way I never expected. I fell in love with you, and I was afraid that the truth would ruin what we had." Sarah crossed her arms, clearly torn between anger and understanding. "I understand what you're saying, but this is still a huge betrayal, Mike. How can I trust you now?" Sarah's words were harsh, but Mike knew he deserved that reaction. He needed to find a way to show that he was genuinely remorseful and committed to being honest from then on. "I know it's a lot to digest, and I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I want to be transparent, not just with you, but with everyone at Carter Tech. I'm working with James to make the company a better place, and I would like you to be a part of that too." Sarah looked at Mike, her eyes still filled with doubt, but with a glimmer of hope. She took a deep breath, clearly struggling with her own feelings. "It's going to take time for me to process all of this, Mike, but if you're truly committed to changing and being honest, then maybe there's a chance for us. I can't promise anything right now, but I'm willing to see how things unfold." Relief washed over Mike like a wave. He knew he had a long road ahead, but the fact that Sarah was willing to consider a second chance was more than he could have hoped for. They spent the rest of the evening talking, with Mike sharing more details about his experiences as a programmer and his intentions to reshape the company. Sarah listened intently, occasionally asking questions and expressing her concerns. When they said goodbye that night, there was a sense of renewal in the air. Mike knew he had an opportunity for redemption, both in his relationship with Sarah and in how he led Carter Tech. The journey ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face every obstacle with integrity and courage. As he left the cafe, Mike felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. He was determined to prove that he could be the leader and the man he had always wanted to be, and that he could do it alongside Sarah and James, building a better future for everyone. The weeks that followed the revelation of his identity were a whirlwind for Mike Carter. With the truth finally exposed, he fully dedicated himself to the task of reshaping Carter Tech, determined to transform the company into a model of transparency and ethics. It was a path filled with challenges, but he was more motivated than ever. With the help of James, who now officially worked as a cybersecurity consultant for the company, Mike began to identify the areas that needed urgent changes. The first step was to conduct a complete audit of Carter Tech's internal systems, reviewing all the practices that had led to distrust and instability. James, with his experience as a hacker, was instrumental in this process, helping to expose vulnerabilities that Mike would never have imagined existed. The journey to correct the mistakes of the past was arduous, but Mike was determined to face each obstacle with courage. He began implementing measures to ensure greater protection of customer data, something he realized in retrospect he had previously neglected in favor of the company's rapid growth. Cybersecurity became a top priority, with the creation of a dedicated team to monitor and prevent future threats. Additionally, Mike also focused on improving working conditions for all employees. During his time disguised as a junior programmer, He had seen firsthand the excessive pressure and lack of recognition that many employees faced. Now, as CEO, he wanted to ensure that all team members felt valued and heard. He started holding regular meetings with different teams, listening to their concerns and suggestions on how to improve the work environment. This more inclusive approach began to have a positive impact on employee morale. They started to see Mike not just as the distant boss, but as a leader who truly cared about their well-being. In one of those meetings, Sarah, who now knew the whole truth, actively participated. She had decided to give Mike a chance to prove that he was committed to making real changes, both in the company and in their personal relationship. Her presence alongside Mike was a constant reminder of why he was determined to do the right thing. Sarah brought her own ideas to the table, suggesting the implementation of professional development and wellness programs for employees. She believed that by investing in people, the company would not only improve productivity but also build a more positive and inspiring culture. Mike embraced Sarah's suggestions enthusiastically, quickly implementing several of them. He also began working with the human resources team to create growth and advancement opportunities for employees, ensuring they had a clear path to success within the company. At the same time, Mike could not ignore the fact that he needed to address the mistakes of the past, particularly those related to unethical business practices. He knew that to truly transform Carter Tech, he would need to confront the decisions he had made previously and the consequences they brought. In a gesture of transparency, Mike called for a general meeting with all Carter Tech employees. He stepped onto the stage in the company auditorium, his heart pounding, but determined to be honest. Looking out at the crowd, he took a deep breath and began to speak. "I have made mistakes," he started, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "For many years, I put growth and profit above the people who make this company what it is. I neglected the safety and well-being of employees and customers, and for that, I sincerely apologize." The silence in the room was palpable, but Mike continued, knowing he needed to face the situation head-on. "In recent months, I have learned valuable lessons about the importance of empathy and integrity. I am committed to transforming Carter Tech into a company that puts people first. This is not just a promise, but a commitment that we will do things differently from now on." He then outlined the changes that had already been implemented and those that were to come, highlighting the new emphasis on cybersecurity, employee well-being, and corporate transparency. When he finished, Mike nervously awaited the employees' reaction. To his surprise, the response was positive. Many began to applaud, and others expressed their renewed support and confidence in Mike's leadership. The meeting was a significant milestone for Carter Tech. It was a sign that the company was truly changing, and that Mike was willing to do whatever it took to rebuild trust and the company's reputation. As time passed, the changes began to solidify. Employees reported a greater sense of purpose and belonging, and customers began to notice the difference in the company's approach. Carter Tech's transformation did not happen overnight, but Mike's commitment to doing the right thing began to bear fruit. Throughout the process, Sarah was a constant source of support and inspiration. Although there were still issues to resolve between them, Mike's honesty and commitment to improving not only the company but also himself helped rebuild the trust that had been shaken. Looking to the future, Mike Carter felt more optimistic than ever. He knew there was still much work to be done, but he was confident that, with the help of Sarah, James, and everyone else at Carter Tech, they could continue to build a company that was not only successful but also fair and responsible. Mike's journey, from distant CEO to empathetic leader, was a testament to the power of transformation and redemption. He learned that true leadership is not based on power or position, but on the ability to listen, learn, and change. With these lessons in mind, he was determined to continue on the path of positive change, both in the company and in his personal life. With the changes implemented at Carter Tech, the company began to breathe new life, and Mike Carter was more determined than ever to move forward with his plans to transform the company into a model of ethics and social responsibility. However, he knew there were still challenges to face, and the next step would be to develop a concrete action plan to ensure that the improvements were sustainable in the long term. Together with Sarah and James, Mike decided that the best way to consolidate the changes would be to involve all employees in a collaborative process. They wanted to ensure that everyone felt part of the transformation and that their voices were heard. To achieve this, They called for a series of workshops and open meetings where any employee could contribute ideas and suggestions on how to further improve Carter Tech. The workshops were a success. Employees, who had previously been hesitant to express their opinions, began to feel more comfortable sharing their experiences and ideas. The sessions were lively, with heated debates and constructive discussions. Mike participated in each one, listening attentively and taking notes on the suggestions. He knew that true change would come from within and that his employees were the best guides for the company's future. Sarah, with her natural leadership skills, facilitated the meetings, ensuring that every voice was heard and respected. Her presence inspired confidence, and Mike realized that with her by his side, the chances of success were even greater. James, on the other hand, was focused on strengthening the company's security, ensuring that past vulnerabilities would not haunt them again. One of the most significant ideas that emerged from the workshops was the creation of an ethics and social responsibility committee composed of employees from different levels and departments. The committee would be tasked with monitoring the company's practices and ensuring that all processes were aligned with the values of transparency and integrity that Mike was promoting. The implementation of the committee was swift and effective. In no time, members began working on new policies to ensure that the company would be an example of ethics in the industry. They also started planning community programs, looking for ways for Carter Tech to give back to society a portion of the success it had achieved. With the support of the committee, Mike also committed to increasing diversity within the company. He recognized that a diverse team would bring new perspectives and ideas, further enriching the corporate culture. To this end, he began working on inclusive hiring policies and training programs to ensure that all employees had equal opportunities for growth. At the same time, Mike and Sarah began developing an external communication plan to inform customers and partners about the changes at Carter Tech. They wanted everyone to know that the company was transforming, not just from within, but also in its relationship with the market. They organized a press conference where Mike had the opportunity to share with the world Carter Tech's new vision. He spoke openly about the challenges they had faced and the lessons learned, highlighting the company's commitment to integrity and social responsibility. The response was extremely positive. Mike's transparency was well received, and many customers and partners expressed their support for the changes. Carter Tech's reputation, which had previously been tarnished by questionable practices, began to recover. The company was finally becoming an example of how corporations can evolve for the better. As the action plan was being implemented, Mike couldn't help but feel a deep sense of accomplishment. The transformation of Carter Tech was a reality, and he was proud to have led this change. However, he knew that the success was not just his. Without Sarah, James, and all the employees who participated in the process, none of this would have been possible. The collaboration between Mike and Sarah also began to strengthen. They worked side by side, sharing ideas and developing strategies to ensure that the improvements would be lasting. The trust between them, which had been shaken by the revelation of Mike's identity, was being rebuilt. Sarah saw in Mike a man committed to making a difference, and their partnership was stronger than ever. As they walked together through the halls of Carter Tech, Mike felt grateful to have Sarah by his side. Her presence was a constant source of inspiration and support, and he knew that with her, he could face any challenge that lay ahead. With the action plan underway, Carter Tech was ready for a new chapter. Mike knew there was still much to do, but he was confident that he was on the right path. He had learned that true leadership came not just from decisions and strategies, but from listening, learning, and working together with those who truly make a difference. The future of Carter Tech was promising, and Mike was determined to ensure that the company remained true to its new values. Alongside Sarah, James, and all the dedicated employees, he was prepared to face any obstacles and continue building a company that was not only successful but also fair and responsible. Mike's journey was proof that, with determination and integrity, transformation was possible, and that true success came from the ability to change for the better. The action plan to transform Carter Tech was in full swing, but Mike Carter knew that the final confrontation with the company's upper management would be the ultimate test for the changes he wanted to implement. It was an inevitable obstacle, as many executives were still clinging to old practices, focused on profits above all else. This confrontation would be crucial not only to ensure the sustainability of the changes, but also to cement his commitment to integrity and transparency. The date for the meeting with the board of directors was set, and Mike prepared meticulously. He knew he would need to make a solid case, demonstrating how the new policies and the company's cultural transformation were not only ethical but also advantageous in the long run. He counted on the support of Sarah, James, and the newly formed ethics committee, but the challenge would be convincing those with deeply entrenched interest in the status quo. On the morning of the meeting, Mike arrived early at the office. The day was cloudy, and the atmosphere seemed to carry a palpable tension. He entered the conference room and found the long table already occupied by the board members, their expressions impassive as they waited for him to begin the presentation. Beside him, Sarah and James sat in solidarity, ready to support his vision. Mike started the presentation by highlighting CarterTech's recent successes. He pointed to indicators of improvement in employee satisfaction, an increase in customer loyalty, and the praise received for its social responsibility initiatives. The graphs and data projected on the screen clearly showed the positive impact of the changes, reinforcing that ethics and profit were not mutually exclusive. Our approach has generated positive results not only in terms of corporate image but also in our bottom line, Mike said, keeping his tone firm. We are attracting new talent and retaining existing ones, while our customers increasingly value our commitment to transparency. As he spoke, he could see some expressions changing among the board members. However, there were those whose faces remained skeptical, incredulous about the need to alter a model that had ensured success for so long. One member, a longtime senior executive named Roger Blake, finally intervened. "Mike, these numbers are impressive, but we need to be realistic," Roger said, folding his arms. "The changes are risky. We're messing with a model that has brought us this far, and we cannot ignore the financial risks associated with this transformation." Mike anticipated this kind of resistance and was prepared. He looked at Roger, acknowledging the legitimate concern but determined to respond effectively. "Roger, I understand your concerns, but we must remember that the world is changing. Consumer expectations are evolving, and transparency is more important than ever. If we do not adapt now, we risk falling behind. Our long-term sustainability depends on our ability to innovate and to be responsible in our practices." Sarah seized the moment to reinforce Mike's argument. "Moreover, employee loyalty and talent retention are critical factors for our continued success. Investing in our team is investing in the future of CarterTech." The room fell silent for a moment as the board members absorbed the arguments presented. Mike knew he needed to take a bold step to fully win the board's support. He then presented a compromise proposal, a plan to continuously review and adjust the new policies based on measurable outcomes, ensuring that all interests were considered. "I propose that we work together, constantly evaluating our practices and adjusting as necessary," Mike said. "This is not an end, but a beginning. A continuous commitment to making CarterTech a leader not only in technological innovation but also in corporate integrity." The argument seemed to resonate with many board members. There were murmurs of agreement, and some executives began nodding affirmatively. Roger, while still skeptical, appeared to be considering the proposal seriously. Finally, after an intense debate and several rounds of questions, the board voted. The decision was unanimous in favor of the changes proposed by Mike. He had managed to convince the executives that the transformation was not only necessary but inevitable for the future success of CarterTech. After the meeting, as the board members left the room, Sarah and James stood by Mike, smiles of relief and satisfaction on their faces. It was a significant victory, proving that ethics and responsibility could go hand in hand with business success. Sarah turned to Mike, her eyes shining. "You did it, Mike. That was a big step." Mike smiled, feeling a weight lifted off his shoulders. "We did it. I couldn't have done it without you." James patted Mike on the shoulder, his voice filled with pride. "This is just the beginning. There's so much more we can do together." With the board's support secured and the path cleared to continue the transformation of CarterTech, Mike felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had proven to himself that it was possible to lead with integrity while also achieving business success. As the day came to an end, Mike reflected on how much had changed since he decided to infiltrate his own company as a mere programmer. The experience had transformed him, teaching him valuable lessons about leadership, empathy, and the importance of listening. And now, with Sarah and James by his side, He was determined to continue on the path of positive change, ensuring that Carter Tech would be an example of innovation and responsibility for the world to see. The confrontation with the board was not the end, but a new beginning. Mike was ready to face the future with confidence and determination, aware that true leadership comes not just from power, but from the ability to inspire and make a difference. And with that clear vision in his mind, he knew he was prepared to tackle any challenges that the future might bring. With the support of the board and the new policies in action, Carter Tech began to flourish under the renewed leadership of Mike Carter. The transformation of the company was not only visible in its financial reports, but also palpable in the office atmosphere. Employees worked with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing they were part of an organization that valued their contributions and put ethics first. The workplace had become a vibrant space, full of collaboration and innovation. Mike, Sarah, and James continued to lead the way, ensuring that the changes implemented were not merely superficial but rooted in the values that Carter Tech now embraced. They became not just leaders but also mentors, guiding teams through new challenges and opportunities. The company was becoming an example of how integrity and financial success could coexist. However, despite all the progress, Mike knew there were still personal issues to resolve, particularly concerning Sarah. Ever since he revealed his true identity, they had slowly rebuilt trust and friendship, but there was one question that still lingered. What did the future hold for them personally? One afternoon, after a long day at work, Mike invited Sarah for a walk in the park near the office. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, creating the perfect atmosphere for the conversation he knew he needed to have. As they walked side by side, Mike finally mustered the courage to address the topic that had occupied his thoughts for so long. He stopped, looking into Sarah's eyes with a sincerity that came from the bottom of his heart. "Sarah, I know that things between us have changed a lot since you found out who I really am," Mike began, his voice heavy with emotion. "And despite everything we've been through, I need to tell you that you have become an essential part of my life." Sarah smiled, her eyes shining in the twilight. "Mike, you know you mean a lot to me too. Working alongside you has been one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had." Mike took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the words he was about to say. "I want you to know that I am willing to do anything for us to continue building something together, both at Carter Tech and outside of it. Not just as colleagues, but as partners." Sarah was silent for a moment, clearly touched by Mike's words. She looked at him, her smile soft and understanding. "Mike, you have shown yourself to be the kind of leader and person I always believed you could be. And yes, I want to see where this can take us. I think we've spent enough time just being friends and colleagues." Relief and joy washed over Mike. He reached out and held Sarah's hand, feeling a deep and authentic connection. It was not just a new beginning for Carter Tech, but also for him and Sarah together. They were ready to face the future, supporting each other every step of the way. With his personal and professional life aligned, Mike felt a peace he hadn't experienced in years. He knew he had made tough decisions and learned valuable lessons along the way, but the journey was worth every challenge. Carter Tech continued to thrive, attracting the attention of other companies looking to follow the example of transformation and social responsibility it had set. The company was not just a successful business, but a beacon of ethical innovation in the tech industry. James, for his part, found his place at Carter Tech as the head of cybersecurity, dedicating himself to ensuring that the company remained at the forefront of data protection and user privacy. His experience as a hacker was now an invaluable asset to the company, and he was determined to use his skills for good. The collaboration among Mike, Sarah, and James continued to grow, forming a strong and cohesive core that guided the company toward new horizons. Together, they led Carter Tech with a clear vision and an unwavering commitment to making a difference. As time went on, the story of Carter Tech's transformation became an inspiring example for other organizations, demonstrating that it was possible to grow and succeed without compromising ethical values. The company was not only conquering new markets, but also earning the respect and admiration of the global community. And as Mike looked to the future, he knew he was finally on the right path. He had learned that true leadership was not just about making tough decisions, but about listening, learning, and being brave enough to change. With Sarah by his side and a team committed to the greater good, He was confident he could face any challenge that arose, transforming Carter Tech into an example of how the business world could and should be. Thus, Mike Carter, the mogul who became an ethical and visionary leader, was ready to face the future with hope and determination. The journey of transformation that had begun as a personal quest was now becoming a legacy, a testament to the power of redemption and the human capacity to change for the better. And with that, he knew that the best was yet to come. If you enjoyed the thrilling story, subscribe, like, comment, and check out the next exciting tale.